Welcome to week 2, people. Hey, I've heard some really good things about some of the life groups this past week. So I hope that this week goes as well as last week. This is week 2 of the Chazown church-wide study. And like last week, we will start with a fun mixer question. The question is this: what is the best and worst purchase that you have ever made? Go. All right, now that you guys have covered that, we're going to do just a little recap from last week. And I know Rhonda Breeden specifically asked me, why did I talk so long last week on the video? So Rhonda, I'm hoping this video isn't as long for you and your small group. Okay, so just to recap, we talked about Proverbs 29:18, which is where the word Chazown comes from. Where there is no vision, the people perish. And the word for vision there in the original language, the Hebrew word Chazown, which means dream, revelation, or vision. So where there is no Chazown, the people perish. We also talked about a quote from Andy Stanley that said, everyone ends up somewhere, few people end up somewhere on purpose. And the goal of this church-wide journey is to end up somewhere on purpose. We want to live out God's vision and dream for our lives. I mentioned briefly last week on the video that we're going to focus on 3 areas. And think of the imagery of 3 circles that interlock. And kind of in the middle of those 3 circles, like Olympic circles, in the middle is kind of the Chazown, or the sweet spot of the 3 areas. So the first area, which is what we're going to look at tonight, is past experiences. Next week we'll look at spiritual gifts. The third week we'll look at core values. So this week the first area is past experiences. Paul says in Romans 8:28 that we know that all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. And on your homework sheet, hopefully you were able to do that. It says that phrase, in all things. It's a beautiful phrase because it means in everything. The good, the seemingly insignificant, the bad, things that we wish we could relive or redo. It's in all those things that God is working for the good of those who love Him. And I think it's really important for us that we don't accept this cliche that whatever happens to you is ordained by God. I don't believe that's true at all. There are some bad things that happen to us, whether it be abuse or rape, kind of extreme things, or divorce. That those things God does not ordain on anyone. So let's kind of not accept the cliche there, but realize that whatever bad happens, God will take it and work it to bring something good out of it. It doesn't mean that what happened to us was good. It does not mean that. But even when evil happens to us, God is able to weave into our life so that He can bring good out of it. God will use our past, bring it into our present to prepare us for the future. And everything can be turned to our advantage if we let God do His work. In just a few moments, I'm going to have you share from your homework. And if you weren't able to do your homework, I still want you to be able to participate. So the question that will come up on the screen is, share one positive experience that you may have written down or you might think of now, and share one negative experience. And then I want you to share one lesson that you've learned as you've looked at both types of experiences. So in order to give you some time to think and look over your chart, your homework, I'm just going to share a positive and 2 negatives that I wrote down on mine. The first positive experience, I remember it was my sophomore year. After my sophomore year in college, there was this summer missions ministry teams. And one of them was a singing team, and I auditioned for that and made the team. And for that summer, for like 8 weeks, we worked in this middle school, high school camp, and we sang and we did Bible studies and small group stuff and games. And it was that summer that I felt really called into ministry, specifically youth ministry. And so that was such a positive time for me. And all of that I experienced, the connections that I made, but also just feeling God called me into a ministry, it was a really positive experience. One of the negative experiences that I wrote down many negative experiences, as well as positive, but I look back and several of the negative experiences was me moving cities and going to new schools. For some, that might be a really positive experience. For me, they were negative experiences. And I went to 4 different schools from first grade to 12th grade. And for me, that was a lot. For some people, they've done many more than that. Maybe you've never had to leave schools. But I was in 4 different school systems from first grade to 12th grade. After my first grade year, we moved. After my 3rd grade year, we moved. And then after my 9th grade year, we moved. Going to different cities, new schools. I felt like the outsider. I felt like I didn't belong. I did not feel like I was accepted. Those were significant experiences for me. And then the second one, negative experience, was going through a divorce. And for those of you who have gone through a divorce, you can understand this. My divorce was about 9 years ago. But when you go through those, not only are they difficult to get over, but the after effect, it's very weird because you feel like a failure. You feel like, oh, I couldn't keep this relationship intact. There's a sort of way that you feel rejected by society because society, you recognize, is so set up by couples and for couples that it just feels weird when you're by yourself. And so those were a couple of negative experiences that I had. But as I looked and reflected on the lessons, I realized this, that one of the lessons is I have empathy and compassion for those who are new to a group, to those who feel misplaced, to those who feel like they don't belong, to those that feel like they're not accepted, to those who feel like they're not devalued. And honestly, as I looked back at that, I realized those are some of the founding values of the Next Chapter Church. That is one of the main reasons that we started Next Chapter, was for people who felt that way. And so that was cool to see. And then another lesson was I realized that these things have helped me to adapt in different environments. And I don't know that I would be as adaptable if I didn't go through some of those negative experiences. And then along the way, I guess speaking of the divorce one as well, God has taught me that God is my everything. God is the source of my everything, of all things, and not a person, not a place, not a thing, but God is. So those are mine. I'm going to quit crying and talking. And so I want you now to take time, share one positive experience, share one of your negative experiences, and then share one of your if you'll share all of the major life lessons that you captured from looking at your experiences, that would be great. So take some time to pause and talk. All right, thanks for sharing. Hopefully you've had some really good times together. And I just want to thank you for setting a culture of allowing one another to share openly. I want to just take the remaining time that I have and just encourage us tonight. And that is this: you and I, we don't know what God is up to behind the scenes of our lives. You don't know how close you are to a breakthrough. And when I say breakthrough, I'm thinking of the life of Moses, where he's in the wilderness for 40 days doing the same thing day in and day out, waking up with the sheep, sleeping with the sheep, and then on the 40th year, somewhere in the 40th year, there's a burning bush experience. And so my encouragement is, you don't know how close you are to the burning bush experience. So continue to hang in there and learn and grow where God has you. It is no accident that you are where you are. That's another encouraging piece. It's not an accident that you find yourself where you are. And it's not even necessarily a problem that you're not where you assume you ought to be. God is very much in control and is working for the good of those who love Him and have been called according to His purposes. God is going to use your circumstances to prepare you to accomplish His vision for your life. Your present circumstances are part of your Chazown. Your present circumstances are part of your Chazown. You're not wasting time. You're not spinning your wheels. God is the master strategist. And if we will just continue to surrender our control to Him, in the meantime, God will continue to use our circumstances to position and prepare us to accomplish His Chazown for our life. So be encouraged with that. As we get ready to pray, I want us to close out in prayer. But I think it would be cool. Maybe you've talked about this a little bit already, and if you have, then just close out in prayer. But maybe just go around. This could even be your prayer. Each person go around and just thank God. Just tell the others and God. Obviously, God is with us. Thank God for one of the areas in your life that you have seen was kind of a bad thing, but God has made good come from it. And let's just kind of have a little praise time where we thank God for bringing something good out of something that seemed bad, and then close out in prayer. Hey, one thing I almost forgot before you pray, for next week, your homework next week, it's actually going to be a link that you can get on our weekly update or on social media, but we've also put together an invitation card that you'll receive Sunday morning, that you'll just scan it with your phone and it will take you directly to the link. It's a link to a spiritual gifts inventory. So we invite you to take this online spiritual gifts inventory. It'll tell you exactly your top spiritual gifts, and then you can bring that printed out copy with you to next week life groups. So I hope that you'll take advantage of that for your homework.